to the Goodie Room, your one-stop shop for everything movies, TV, and more. We know you want the goodies. Welcome back to the Goodie Room. I'm your host, Matt the Nachos. With me always is my guy in the chair, Frankie Rock. How we doing today, Frank?
Oh, we're doing pretty good. How the heck you doing?
Can't really complain. It's always a good day when we get to record, talk about our favorite things, movies. And today's special one, Goodie Room Lectures episode, we're going to talk about Frank and I's concerts that we've seen, ones we recommend that you see. Switch it up a little bit, give you a little bit of music perspective into the life of Matt and Frank. But full episode today, Goodie Room Lectures. Like I said, we're going to talk about concerts. Then we're going to get into another retro council, where we're going to talk about a special one that I actually just recommended to Frank a couple weeks ago that he has now really enjoyed. 80s classic called Dragnet. It was a show. It's a movie. We'll talk about it later. And then we're going to get into, it's kind of depressing to talk about it at this point, but we do have an update on the Batman. So children with adult money today, we will give you the update on the Batman. And spoiler alert, it's not a good one.
Red alert.
Any comments before we get started, Frank?
Oh, I don't, real quick before we do get started, a couple episodes ago, we were talking about the new Mission Impossible movie and how it has an absurdly long title. But one of the things that we talked about was how I had no idea by watching the movie what Dead Reckoning means, what the title meant by that. And I've since watched it again because it hit digital a few days ago. And I am still like, what is the Dead Reckoning? If anybody out there would like to comment and tell me what the Dead Reckoning is, I would really appreciate that. But anyway.
Thanks for that insight. I was on pins and needles all week, waiting for, this answer, but you don't have it. So you failed me once again.
Well, Matt, you're just sour because it's a Paramount movie and Paramount is not on Movies Anywhere. So if you want to watch it, you got to find it yourself.
You know what? You've disappointed me again. All right, so we're just gonna move on to the next subject because I'm tired of talking about it. All right, but we're gonna go ahead and get into the Goodie Room Lectures. And today, as I mentioned, we are going to talk about concerts. So a little background why Frank and I wanted to really bring up this topic. So if you couldn't tell, Frank and I are best friends. We went to college together, we lived together, and our friendship really developed during that time. And one of the things we always talked about was music. And we would love to go see some of these acts that we were listening to. But concerts are expensive. You need the time, you need the money. Tickets ain't cheap, right? But we always said once we get jobs and we get out of school, we are going to make an effort to go see concerts. And I can tell you 100% we delivered on that. And it's become kind of a tradition between, not only Frank and I, but, Frank's brother, Nick. We kind of always, find a concert to go to, whether it's in Pittsburgh where I live or out in Columbus area where Frank's at, it doesn't matter. We'll find one and we'll go to it. But one that Frank and I, really always wanted to go to and see was Muse. And if you don't know who Muse are, they're a band from, England. They have a little bit of a more of a kind of like robotic, futuristic type of rock sound to them. Some not really for everybody, but really kind of cool sound. And if like Knights of Sidonia is the big song that they're known for. So if you were big into Guitar Hero, Knights of Sidonia was a Guitar Hero song.
And not only that, speaking of Knights of Sidonia, is when we were living together and we first found out, like, oh, you're a Muse fan. Of course I'm a Muse fan, blah, 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 blah. I want to say, the Pittsburgh Penguins had somehow incorporated that song into they came out to it, or it was in the commercials. Yeah.
I was so psyched because I remember buying tickets because, where we went to school, we went to Clarion University, and they would allow students to buy tickets to Penguin games. And I bought a ticket, and they would bus you down to Pittsburgh to the game. And the intro came up, and it was a comic book like theme where they were like zooming in of pages of like the players. It's the best intro I've ever seen, and they've yet to match this. But Nisus Sidonia was the theme song over top of that.
And with Muse, they're kind of like, in a way, they're not as futuristic sounding as like a Daft Punk, nor are they like real techno. But if our audience, well, I mean, they probably remember this, the movie Tron Legacy, where Daft Punk did the score for that movie. I would be willing to bet when they were like throwing darts at the board, like, who are we going to get to score the movie? I guarantee Muse's name came up at some point because they have like a similar type of vibe in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's just one of those bands that we've always liked, and we always thought it'd be cool to go see them. Not a band that actually tours around this area that often, and they just happened to be coming to Pittsburgh the one time, and I told Frank we're absolutely going. We bought
And
tickets.
it was on a Sunday night, and I had just gotten like my first job, like my first full-time teaching job. And it was in that happy time of the school year, like right at the beginning, where yes, you had personal days. Yes, you were allowed to use them. However, within the first like couple weeks, a little frowned upon, or at least it was where I was at. Not that that's a bad thing, because like now I kind of agree with that 100%. But I just said I'm just gonna use one of my days, and because it was a Sunday night, and if I would have drove home, I wouldn't have been able to drive home, get like 2 hours of sleep, and wake up and go to work the next day. It would have been a disservice to my job. But we also were on the floor for that show, which I had never been on the floor at a concert before. And I was really nervous about not being able to see because, spoiler alert, if you ever meet me in person, I am like super short. Like Matt's laughing in the camera. He knows.
Yeah, I make short jokes all the time about Frank. He calls me Shrek, and I call him Donkey.
Every now and again, Frodo. But I thought it just, for being on the floor, and I was able to see pretty good. Like you got us to a good spot. It was probably one of the first times, again, as Matt had said, we've gone to many concerts, and there's many times where Matt will just like turn around, whether we're in line or we're trying to get somewhere, and he'll look at me and he'll say, grab the back of my shirt, don't let go. And I just follow Matt.
Yeah, I learned that from is my brother-in-law, because he's a larger set guy, and that's what I would do. He loved going into the pits and on the floor, and when him and I would go to concerts, I'd just be like, "All right, man, lead the way. I'll just be right behind you," and that's it. He would do it all the time, and he was such a just a larger guy that people would just naturally move out of the way because they didn't want a rub against him. But yeah, I mean, we were on the floor for that. I mean, really, really cool show. They're just I think performance wise, right? Very technically sound musicians. They're pros. They've been doing it for a long time. Total rock stars. I mean, if I recall correctly, they broke like probably what was like a $5,000 guitar on stage.
And that was maybe my fourth concert at the time. And I thought the whole breaking of the guitar on the stage was like a myth. Like I never expected to see that live. So the fact that it happened, that Muse did that, I was just elated and just, holy cow. Like I got goosebumps thinking about that moment.
Oh, 100%. I thought the same thing. I was like, nobody does that. That's such like an old school like 80s like rock thing. And then there he is, like he's like thrown it against this like thing. But you remember they had like that big like pyramid thing that like kind of came down.
It would come down, it would invert. Every song on this pyramid, ladies and gentlemen, was like first it would take a different shape every song, and then like the sides of the pyramid were TV screens, so there'd be something different on the TV. But the light show, each song was its own separate light show. It was like being at Disney World, at Epcot when they do their light show. but better because it was Muse and not, a whole new world.
One of the things if I recall correctly too, it wasn't like this was down at the arena where the Pittsburgh Penguins play. And one thing I seem to recall too is they didn't sell the upper bowl. It was only the lower bowl and the floor, which I was kind of shocked. And I don't know if it was just maybe there's not a lot of Muse fans. I know another show like Frank, you and I went to with a group of people was Smashing Pumpkins, right?
Oh
And
yeah, I remember there were people that they did sell the upper bowl to.
they sold them and they gave them tickets.
And they said, "Come down. They don't want to see you up there. Come, there's plenty of room down here. Why don't you just come down?"
Because no one bought the floor tickets, right? And I think
Right.
our buddies who were sitting in the upper bowl, because we bought the lower bowl, right? Like,
Yeah.
like I'm not going to go to a concert, and like I get it, you're listening, but I also want to see and kind of be like where the action is. And if you go to PPG Paints, I got to be honest, like when I've sat in the upper bowl at PPG Paints Arena, the sound is not good. I just don't like sitting up there. I need to be in the lower bowl or I need to be on the floor.
Right. Smashing Pumpkins. Wow. Matt and I, like he said, we also saw that in Pittsburgh. I have a friend in town who actually lived in Chicago for a very long time. And she actually had run into their lead singer, Billy Crogan, whatever, Billy. And she got to know him a little bit. And she found out that we were going, and she was like, "He's such a jerk. He's just such a jerk. Like, I can't believe it." And I'm thinking, like, no way he's as bad as she's saying he is. Well, he proceeds to make fun of Pittsburgh as he's in Pittsburgh. And like the whole stadium, those of us that did show up were booing him, like, boo, like, how dare you? I think he did it for attention, but at the same time, I was like, yeah, he's kind of a jerk.
Got to be honest, Frank, I don't remember that because we had a little too much fun before we went into that show. I remember I was hanging on the ropes like I was Rocky Balboa getting my butt kicked by Drago.
That's neither here nor there. That's neither here nor there.
I got Mickey in the corner getting, "Get up, Rock! Get up!"
Back to Muse though. Not only just like set performance with the inverted pyramid and the lights, the lead singer, is just such a showman. Like, holy cow, just electrifying on the stage. And you and I go through Muse kicks probably about 2 or 3 times a year for like a week straight. We'll just listen to nothing but Muse. Well, I got to the point where I looked up the set list from that night we saw them, and I made a playlist of just that concert, and it hits so well. It was perfectly balanced, their track mix that night.
That was what was that? It was Panic Station, I think, was the album that came
No,
out.
The Second Law is what it was called.
Second Law is what it was called. Yeah, Panic Station. Yeah, you're right. It was a song on there. Yeah, that was a great concert. But Showman, I think just you talking about that is a perfect transition into the next concert that you and I had the pleasure of going with. And I really should thank your brother because I was his date for that, right? He invited me to go to that concert, but Green Day, right? And that's one I always tell people is like Green Day or those guys are showmen. Like, they know how to put on a show, they know how to play to the crowd, and that was just such a fun show. And Frank, I want you to kind of talk a little bit about our little VIP section that we had on.
Absolutely. And I will tell you real quick before I get into the VIP story, because Matt and I absolutely were VIP that night, and we'll never have seats like this ever again in our life. But Green Day is so good live, in my opinion, that I actually prefer listening to their live sets over their studio stuff, because the energy that they bring live is like none other. Like, it is just insane. But so they were playing at, I think it's the Peterson Event Center, right, Matt? So that's where Pitt basketball plays, and they're in Pittsburgh, which that was the first time I was ever at a concert at the Pete. And I was actually shocked they were playing there instead of, the arena or one of the baseball or football stadiums in town. but that place was packed, and we get into our seats, which were actually not bad. Like, our seats were fine. We were pretty close to the stage, but my parents also wanted to come because when I was in high school, I begged my parents to go see Green Day on the American Idiot Tour, and thank you, mom and dad, for this, but, like, miraculously, they said yes, and they let me go alone with my older cousin, which was phenomenal. My Chemical Romance opened up, and they had just hit the scene and made it big. When I came home, for years, and this was probably like 15 years difference between when I saw them in high school and when we actually went, I kept on saying how amazing Green Day was live. And my parents actually, through me, sort of became Green Day fans because I obsess over things. I was listening to their music constantly, to the point where my dad was like, burn me that CD, because it was back in those happy days. So flash forward to the night where Matt, my brother, or excuse me, my brother and his date Matt, and I don't think Rosa and I were married yet. I know we were living together.
No, I don't think you were. I think you guys were still dating, but
Oh,
and you were trying to hang out with me, and I was like, no, Rosa's your date. I'm Nick's date.
that's right. So anyway, I'm getting a text from my dad like, "Hey, how are your seats?" And I said, "They're not bad. Like, I can see the stage. Like, the opening act was on stage. I forget who they were, relevant, but my dad and my brother are like massive Pitt sports fans. They love Pitt basketball. They love Pitt football. I tell them all the time they deserve a better team, but they're diehards. Well, my dad and brother are there so much that they got to know one of the ushers pretty well. And Matt will probably have to help describe where my this usher had put my mom and dad, and then they called us over and they said, "You can watch the show here, no problem." Where, like, how would you describe the area they put us in?
It's basically kind of like almost like a private box. You know, it's basically your own area. And the way why I describe it as like a box is because usually I believe this is where like you would have like a group of people sit with you, and then they like if you went to a game, they actually I think even provide food. But these aren't seats like that are sold with tickets. And so it was even like kind of roped off, and yeah, and he was like, yeah, just sit right here. So we literally could get up, stretch out, we could like walk around, stand, you know, easy access to the bathroom,
We
right?
were right there next to the bathroom, so key. And
Yeah.
like, I just remember there was a point where the lead singer was said "F you, Donald Trump," and we started like shoving my brother back and forth between each other. We're like, ah, and and there was just so much room. Like, we didn't bump into anybody, like my parents or my girlfriend at the time. It just was there was that much room. I don't think there were seats there. I think we stood, but it like at that point, like, who needs a seat?
Yeah, there were seats there. So you could sit down, but like it wasn't like we were on top of each other. Like if you wanted to sit like 3 seats apart from someone, like there was tons of space. Like there was no one else there.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, like, and it was cool because, like, again, it was like our own little private box. You didn't have to deal with like anybody standing in front of you, sitting beside you, taking your armrest, Um, yeah, yeah. The one thing I always like to, I always recall from that too, and your brother didn't let it ruin his night, but he did drop his brand new iPhone that had no case on it. It's completely shattered the screen before the show started.
Oh, and not only that, like, to this day, still refuses to use a case, even though, like, this is not an isolated incident in his life.
Oh, I know, and the other thing from that too is I recall we dropped like you guys off at the Pete, and him and I went and parked like way farther down,
I
like
remember that, yeah.
free parking, and we walked up, and I was like, man, I didn't realize I was gonna get a workout today. Like,
Seriously. Oh, well, it's not like when we were following him around for the marathon. That was a workout.
yeah, but yeah, like that was a great time, and great showmanship. I remember, Billy Joel Armstrong. He called this girl up on stage, and he does this, I think, every show. He calls a fan up on stage, he teaches them. I mean, Green Day songs are really very simple, songs to play, and that's kind of like what makes them great is the simplicity of them. And he shows her a few chords, and she starts strumming it. They sing the song right as she's playing. She does the guitar part. He sings the song, and the rest of the band plays their parts, right? And then at the end of the song, he says, "You can keep that guitar," and she goes, "But I play bass." He goes, "Too bad you got a guitar with 2 extra strings because bass
right.
has 4 strings."
Yeah. That was awesome. They also did that when I saw them back in high school.
Yeah,
That's just kind of their thing, but it's still cool that they still are doing that. But not only with the show in high school, but like the one that we saw together. A massive thing that I love about seeing Green Day live is the pyrotechnics. There's fire galore, baby.
yeah, that was pretty good. That was good, but I want to spend some time even talking about the next show. I know you and I kind of had a few shows we wanted to discuss,
Right.
and I want to be respectful of the time because I think you and I are going to have a lot to say about the next band.
Yeah.
So, any final comments on Green Day though before we go?
Um, can't wait to see him again. Honestly, like I cannot wait to see Green Day again.
Well, we almost did, and then we had a hiccup on that.
But that was like a hiccup that kept leading to more hiccups, COVID, then someone was pregnant, and then, it got rescheduled to like a Tuesday night, not during the summer,
That's right. That's right. So what I'm referring to, guys, yeah, they did the Hella Mega tour, and it was Green Day, it was Weezer, and Fall Out Boy. I think
Yep.
were the 3 bands, right? All bands who I have personally seen all three, once before, and we had planned to go to this show, and COVID hit, and it got rescheduled, and they literally rescheduled it on a weekday. And we purposely try to plan concerts like on days where it makes sense for all of us, like especially with our jobs, and the weekend is just the easiest, right?
Right.
Especially because we live in different areas, so we have to be respectful of the travel time that
Sure.
each of us have to do, right? And we have careers, so that unfortunately got rescheduled. I think twice.
Yeah. Yeah. And the first time it got rescheduled, we were actually going to be able to do it. However, it was right after things started opening up again. And, my wife was pregnant at the time. And we just were like, hey, that just isn't some dice we want to roll. Then it got rescheduled again. Oh, happy day. But it was like a Tuesday night. And I just was like, the show was in Pittsburgh. And I said, we're just not going to be able to make it.
Yeah, and I think it was also rescheduled on the same day as another show that was rescheduled. So there was a show at PBG Paints Arena, and then there was the Hella Mega Tour, which was at, I believe, like PNC Park or Hinesville, which are two ends of the city. And I want to say it was maybe Maroon 5 or something like
Right.
that. I can't,
Um,
or maybe I'm mistaking that with two other shows. But anyways,
One
it got
second. I'm sorry. When we sold those tickets, I was like, that's fine. Like, I'm honestly cool with it. But it wasn't until the night of the show, and I didn't realize like how many like mutual friends of ours were going, and I could not get on Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat. Everybody was at that show. I actually took my phone and put it in a different room. I was that salty about it. I was like, oh,
Yeah, but if I recall correctly too, it like really stormed that
yes,
day. And like so those people were wet the whole time. Not that that makes a difference, right? But we had to do what you had to do
yeah,
because when you get those opportunities, yeah, that's your only chance to really get refunded if you haven't
sure,
bought the ticket insurance, which a lot, I like, yeah, it's just, why
Eh,
yeah, right. But
right.
anyways, I want to talk about this next one, right? And the next one is 21 Pilots. All right.
So, yep, go ahead.
No, go ahead, man. You got stuff to say. You say it. I
No,
want you.
no, no, no. Well, I just wanted to say real quick before you go off that this is a band that Matt introduced me to, I think right when the Vessel album came out. And I remember I listened to the one song and I liked it so much. I then got the CD. I listened to another song and I liked it a lot. Listened to another song, liked it a lot. I ended up buying the CD. It was like, I like 3 songs in a row. I buy your CD. Anyway, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, so where I was going to go is I was actually going to bring that up. So, Frank and I are a bit of hipsters when it comes to 21 Pilots. We liked them before they were popular, guys. All right. We were going to their shows when it only cost me $30 a ticket to go see them. And actually, how I learned about them was my brother in law. We have a friend who went to a festival called, I believe it was Lollapalooza, or it might have been Fire Festival. It was one of those two, but 21 Pilots were there, and he said, "Oh, you got to check out this band." And so we went on YouTube, we watched them, and I was like, "Oh man, this is totally different stuff than like I've ever seen or heard." And I was like, "I really like this. This is awesome." Found out they were coming to Stage AE. They were playing an indoor show, so I got a few other people into them. I said, "Hey, let's buy tickets for the show." They were dirt cheap, like $30. Went, best show ever. Like, you want to talk about showmanship and putting on a production, like, they were doing it even before they were big. At the end, they blowing confetti everywhere. They're out in the crowd, doing backflips off the drum set and stuff like that. But really great songs. And
He was
Frank,
climbing the rafters. Remember when he was climbing the rafters at Stage AE? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, climbing the rafters. And I got Frank, into them. I took him, down to a show at Stage AE, again, before they were big, and we were down in the pit. And he was, again, he's short. He's like, I can't really see down here. And I was like, oh, you'll be fine. And it was a great time. We had a
So
blast.
it was a blast, and I want to preface it with Matt's very lucky. He got to pay $30 to see him the first time, and little old me had to pay 35 to see him the next time.
Yeah, yeah, but that was a great show. And then, of course, they
Oh, it was
blew up
great.
after. This was even before Vessel came out. Like, they didn't even really have like an album. He was just releasing his music on iTunes and other platforms like that. And what they did is, whenever they got their big record deal, is they said, there's really enough songs here to make an album. And that's what they did. And they created Vessel, and they went on tour. Um, you know, and then they started to really blow up, and then Blurry Face came out, right? And then they started doing the stadium tour. But Frank, I want you to talk a little bit about that Blurry Face tour and how we were doing like SOS signs.
So before I talk about that, like I was still teaching in Pennsylvania at the time, and when I went to that first show with you, I remember when I came back and it was like Monday morning, and I always try to like get the kids going conversation wise, like how's everybody's weekend, what you do, and even if they ask or not, I'll say, well, this is what I did. And when I mentioned that I went to see 21 Pilots, it was like, like the old Western saloon, like the music stopped and like everybody looked up and they're like, every hand went up. Everybody had questions. And I was like, whoa, whoa. I was like, so you've heard of them? And they were like, oh my God. And that's when I knew. I was like, oh, I guess these guys are popular. But so they blow up, Blurry Faces out. I forget why we at first couldn't go see him together. My brother got me a ticket and another one to share for Christmas. So I of course took my brother because I was like, "Oh, you got to come see these guys. You're gonna love them." I forget how you ended up into the mix.
What happened was is
What had
I
happened
was
was
yeah, what had happened was is I was stupid, and I wasn't super into Blurry Face when it first came out. And it took me a while to really warm up to the album, and it's actually one of my favorites now. Um, but I had liked their music Vessel so much that it was hard for me to make that transition at first. And then the tickets went on sale, and then I saw the price, and I was like, it was hard for me also to get over like what I was previously paying to go
the
see it.
30 $35. And they were at this point, in case you haven't gone to see 21 Pilots, they are charging out the wazoo. It's comparable to what you'd pay for a Taylor Swift ticket.
Yeah, and so it was expensive, and I was like, I don't know. Well, go figured, right? The show sells out, of course. And I got into the album after that, and then the closer we came up to the concert, I really started to regret not buying the ticket because I had seen them every single time they had come to Pittsburgh. And I was like, this is going to be the first one I miss. And, I was like, and I hate myself because this album's awesome and I'm so mad. So, my in laws bought tickets for my brother in law and my sister in law. Well, my brother-in-law could not go, and they were trying to sell me the tickets, and I was like, "Well, I'm not really interested in, like, in buying them, like, I didn't buy them before, and, that's my mistake, and, I'm not gonna buy them now." And so Colleen and I, my wife, we went to, we were at Ichiban, and Colleen was pregnant. She was
Oh
pregnant.
yeah, she was pregnant.
Yeah, and so, I was like, so this is probably like for the best, right? I should just probably just stay at home and stuff like that. And we went to Ichiban and we're enjoying ourselves. And she gets a call from, mother-in-law, and she says, I couldn't, it was the day of the concert. She goes, I couldn't sell these tickets. Do you guys just want them? And Colleen was like, yeah. So that's how we ended up. So I show up at the stadium at PPG Paints Arena. It might have been it might have been Consol Energy Center still at that time,
Oh,
but
it still was, yes.
yeah, but same difference, right?
Yeah.
So they had this cardboard cutout, and I told Colleen, I said, take a picture of me next to this cutout. And she took a picture, and I sent it to Frank and his brother Nick, and and they were like, "Where are you? How'd you get here?"
So we get through the, oh, where are you? How'd you get there? And he loosely tells us where, because he's like, I don't know where you're at. So, but I'm kind of here. And I forget who suggested it first, but I said, turn on your flashlight on your phone and start doing this in front of it, like, and
Like giving it like SOS signals.
yes. So I'm looking, I'm like scanning the whole stadium. I see it. And I text him, I was like, I see you. Now I'm going to do it. And I start doing it. And he goes, I see you too. So like we locate each other. Like this is the lanes Matt and I will go to just to be like, all right, I see you. We're not next to each other, but I see you. We're here.
I mean, and that was a great show. And, you kind of, you picked up a little bit of tricks from that show because the next tour was the Trench Tour, which that I would have to say is probably my favorite album now.
It
Is
is my
Trench.
favorite, but kind of like how you were with Blurry Face. When I first started hearing the first couple songs that they released, I was like, I think this is not great. But when the whole album came out and I heard it all together, I was like, this is, and I still think it is. I think it's their masterpiece.
I would have to agree. And I remember you and your wife bought tickets in Columbus, and I had bought two tickets, and I invited your brother, right? He invited me to a lot of stuff, like
Right.
we brought up Green Day, and I was like, you know what, Nick? I was like, come on. He was like, oh, what do those cost? I
He
said,
was
no.
your date. He was
I
your
was like,
date.
yeah, I was like, you're my date. Come on. So, I remember him. This is such a great story too. Like we went to this spot called Aliota's down
Oh,
in a little spot in Etna, and it's
many of pre-concert hangouts started Aliotos. Just throwing it out there. The
yeah,
gyros are chef's kiss.
yeah, and the Long Island's are chef's kiss too, because it's part of the reason why I was on the ropes at that Smashing Pumpkins concert. But so we go there, we have a few drinks, and he goes, hey pal, who's opening up for them? And I was like, nobody we need to worry about. He goes, well, what times do you think they're gonna go on stage? I was like, I got that covered. Don't worry about it. So, it's getting close to showtime. He goes, should we go? And I said, we're gonna have one more drink and then we're gonna call an Uber and we'll go down there. So we, finish our drinks, get the Uber. We show up at PPG Paints Arena. I got us floor tickets where we go down to the floor, and the show had just started. Like he was just doing his opening song. And if you don't have never been to one of their like arena tours, there's two stages. There's the main stage, and then there's a separate stage that's like further back from where basically everybody's standing in the pit. And I looked to your brother and I said, we're going to stand back by this other stage. And he goes, He goes, "Why is that?" And I said, "Because they come out here and they do like 4 or 5 songs on this little stage, and like, look, you're right against the railing, like it's front row.
Yeah.
Like you have to be up there." And and Frank and I know this too, as seasoned concert goers. When you're on the floor, you don't need to be up in the action, right? Because if you're like us, you want to wet your whistle a little bit. It's
Right.
hard to get out of there and then get
And
back.
it's just to keep, you got to get out, you got to get back in. It gets confusing. Um,
Get mad because you're throwing bows trying to get back there.
right. So when we didn't get to see that show together, but Matt had mentioned that I saw it in Columbus where they were from, so it was their hometown show, which I thought just had a whole different energy to it. And Matt had to, I think the Pittsburgh show was first, and Matt was telling me like the opening act, don't worry about it. The good thing about Columbus is in the arena district, Nationwide Arena, it's like right there next to like any restaurants or whatever. We were at a place called the Three Legged Mare. We were so close to the stadium, we could hear the opening band come on. And only after like 10 or 20 minutes into their set did we decide to go in. By the time we went through security and everything, they were like getting off the stage. My wife, who doesn't go to a whole lot of concerts, she's just not her thing. It was our first anniversary gift to each other, the paper anniversary. So, we got tickets. And I spared no expense with these tickets. We were close, like up in the stands. And I remember when we were walking down the stairs to our seats, my wife, like, literally loses her mind. She goes, "Is that the stage?" And I said, "Yes." And she goes, "I'm going to be able to see their facial expressions." We were that close. And speaking of like, if you've been to their arena tours, like not only do they go out to the mini stage, but he pops up in the middle of the crowd. We were 5 rows away from where he popped up. And I honestly thought like we were going to be on, in some photos of that moment. I've been looking for years. We're short, we're covered. You can't see his.
And you want to talk about production? That was a production. The lights, they had that. Did they have the little bridge that came
Yes.
down? Oh man, like that was the people were going nuts. I was like, oh dude, this is a sick show.
I'm not a fan. I'm not like the biggest fan of the song Neon Gravestones, but when he walked across that bridge and did that on the little stage with the lights,
Yeah.
oh, like I can't listen to that song anymore because it just doesn't compare to seeing that part with the light shows and the production. Like it was amazing.
It's not the same. But I do want to keep the show moving, kind of move on to some of our other topics. But Frank, it doesn't have to be one of the ones we've talked about, but what would you say your top show or concert is that you would recommend?
Okay, it is not one we talked about, but I was very fortunate that my dad got my brother and I tickets as like a father sons type of thing. We all went to see the Rolling Stones, and not only were they just phenomenal live, also big production, but I've never seen a stadium so packed to the point where like I couldn't see the aisles, like people were in the aisles. And my favorite moment, like I have many favorite moments for the concert, but the best part was Jagger was coming down the catwalk, Jagger like, and I could see girls fainting as he walked by them. And I was just like, 80 years old, still got it.
Oh, that's great.
How about
You,
you?
I mean, uh, outside of 21 Pilots, right? I have to say them because I've seen them so many times, but I would say one of my other favorite shows that I've ever been to. One of them was Mumford and Sons. I was fortunate enough to get an opportunity to purchase, or they did like a fan lottery, and I ended up seeing them out in Burgettstown, which a lot of people know as like Star Lake Amphitheater. And I had never been this close to the stage in my life, and I was like 3 rows back. That was a great show. And then more recently, uh, Rage Against the Machine in their opening act, which Frank, I've told you we're
We're
gonna go,
going. We're going.
but yeah, who am I thinking of? I don't know why the names. I'm blanking on the name right now. Help
Run the
me.
jewels.
Yeah, Run the Jewels. Yeah, Run the Jewels. We're going because they opened up, and you and I are already fans of Run the Jewels,
Yes.
and that was just like amazing. They opened up, and then Rage Against the Machine came on, and then they tried to play show tunes after, to calm the people down. They're like, "All right, you've raged enough. Time to go home."
I if you weren't gonna tell that story, I was gonna be like, Matt, tell them what they played as you're walking out of the stage. Because when you told me that, I was like, that's actually smart. Because I'm sure everybody was ready to go.
Yeah, we all looked at each other too. Like I was laughing with like people around me, and it's like, "Okay, I guess you're done raging for tonight. See you later."
Everybody just calm down.
Right. But yeah, we are going to get moving into our next segment here, which is a retro council. And this is one that I was happy to see. I had been like actually trying to search. I was going to search for and buy this movie because it's an older film from the 80s that you don't really see pop up on streaming services a lot. And that is Dragnet. And this is the movie Dragnet starring Dan Aykroyd and Tom Hanks, and it's a super underrated comedy. And Frank, I just want to hear what your first thoughts were when you saw this movie.
So when it was funny, Matt had texted me and was like, dude, Dragnet. And I was like, oh, I just literally browsed by that on Netflix. I was going to watch it. And he goes, you absolutely should watch it and let me know what you think. And I didn't get to it that day. I got to it a few days later. And I actually had no idea what it was walking into, but I love Tom Hanks and I love Dan Aykroyd, specifically Dan Aykroyd in the 80s. Um, Holy cow. Just what a funny movie. It's my type of humor because it's like slapstick comedy, but like Dan Aykroyd's character is like this hard-boiled detective that plays it straight the entire time. Like all this goofy crap is happening around him, but it like he's just like reciting the law and just like never breaks like the hard edge to him. And Tom Hanks is like his zany partner, and it just those two together, it was like chocolate and peanut butter.
Yeah, he's like, like they're investigating. One of the things they investigate is this group called the Pagans, right? And they're like, looking into these crimes, and one of the crimes is at a zoo. And Dan Aykroyd's like, what is the weight of a fruit bat? And Tom Hanks goes, "What? You mean you don't know?" you know, it's just like kind of humor the whole time. And like, one of my favorite scenes is they basically kind of redo like the Playboy Mansion. It's called Bait, right? And they go to this Bait Mansion because a bunch of their magazines for the month were stolen, the whole run actually, and they work in robbery and homicide, so they have to go investigate this. So they go up there, and Tom Hanks knows all the bait mates, playmate, bait mate, that's kind of the play on it. And he's like, he's calling all the girls by their first names and reciting all their like hobbies and
And the
interests.
month too, right?
Yeah, in the months that they were the bait mates and stuff like that. And Tom Hanks just goes, "They ought to transfer you to missing persons street back."
Oh, yes, it did. And one of my other I really loved, like, the introduction scene to Dan Aykroyd's character, because the reason Tom Hanks comes along is Dan Aykroyd's partner retires or something like that, and the chief goes, "Don't worry, I'm sure you understand." And Dan Aykroyd, just like as plain as day, he goes, "Sure, I understand. But what about the 15 million people in Los Angeles that were relying on him to do his job? Will they understand?" I'm just like, oh my gosh, like,
Yeah, so it really is a great comedy. It's a cop humor. If you've seen the show, you kind of already know what kind of humor to expect. But it is one of those classics, I think, that you should check out. It's currently streaming on Netflix. That's why we wanted to bring it up and talk about it today.
I
Uh,
think also too the way that they did it, because like I looked into it, the old show was like super serious, and they made a comedy or a spoof on it. And I'm trying to I honestly believe like that's where they got the idea for 21 Jump Street. They took a serious show from like 20 years prior and just like made it funny, and that's just like a beautiful thing.
yeah, so check it out. Let us know what you see. Like I said, it's on Netflix, and I don't know how much longer it'll be out there. This is the first time I've ever seen it pop up on a streaming site or platform. So give it a go, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a stream for me.
Yeah, it's definitely I've seen it like 4 times since it's been up. So, but like I said, it was one of my favorites as a kid that my dad introduced me to, and I was like, I saw it up there, and I've been meaning to watch it because it's an underrated comedy. But yeah, moving on, we are going to talk about children with adult money, and of course, we are back to the Batman watch, and it is starting to get super depressing.
Where is he?
Where is he?
I tell you where he's at. He's not in our possession.
Yeah, he's somewhere overseas, probably in some sweatshop, still being made. Uh, that's probably the truth. But I'm going to bring up the image here, Frank.
Go ahead.
And it is Batman Day. If I didn't say this, Batman Day watch 49 by the time this episode releases for you, the people. But this is the message that we received the other day, Frank and I both. Hello. We wanted to let you know that the estimated arrival date for your Batman has changed. They didn't say when.
Nope.
They just say it's been changed. Well, when did you change it to? It's unknown. It's probably TBD, to be determined, right? Based on the latest production information, we now expect your Batman to arrive into our warehouse in October / December 2023. Lies, all right?
It's a lie.
It's a lie. I'll believe it when I see it. We apologize for any inconvenience, but we do look forward to shipping out this item to you when it arrives. If you need an update, any information on your order, you can easily do so through our online account. Thanks for nothing.
So to just put a little salt in the wound as well, they sent this email. I think it was like the last day of September, the 29th. And along with it, just to kind of be like, because we feel bad that it's late, we're going to give you as like a 25% off coupon that we had to use by October 4th. And it was only able to be used on select items. So I looked at the items. I was like, maybe there's something I like. Nothing. Garbage. It's like, yeah, I bet you want to get this out of your warehouse.
Right.
Also, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, no, I don't want the coupon. You know what I want? I want the Batman, okay?
I want me, mine, now.
Also, because I love following when these figures are going to drop, much like Matt does with shoes and t-shirts, but there's another Batman based off Ben Affleck in the Justice League movie that was supposed to come out between October and March of this year, and it's already dropping, meaning like I don't know what happened. Like they were able to rush production on the Ben Affleck one, but the Rob Pattinson one, they're just like, sorry guys, like it's not happening. So it just like it's killing me inside knowing like this other one's coming, which is a nice figure. I don't know if I'll pick it up, but like it's not the Batman. It's not the Batman that I want. You know what I mean?
It's not vengeance.
It's not
vengeance.
No.
But what really killed it for me too is like, it was supposed to come by September. And you and I were talking, and you watch a lot of reviews on these things,
Yes.
right? YouTube and things, and you were telling me that a lot of times you'll see a lot of these influencers and people review the item, and usually that's an indication that yours is going to ship pretty soon.
Right.
And the guy, I think you were mentioning or talking about it, they were like, stop asking me about it. I don't know where he's at. I don't have him. I don't know what I'm going to review him.
So that was the one guy. And now in the weeks since, that guy just was like, guys, I don't know what to tell you. I've seen so many and this is how deep I go. I will watch how people utilize their space in their display cases and like how they arrange their figures and things like that, just to kind of get some ideas, because I can't think of that stuff on my own. Matt will tell you, like, I'm always picking his brain, like, does this look too cramped or blah, blah, blah. And there was a guy that had not so subtly kind of gave the finger to Sideshow Collectibles. He goes, And here's an empty space that I would planning on putting the Batman hot toy, but it's late, 6 months late, and now it's going to be later. And you guys want me to promote you, but I'm not going to. You know who you are. I was just like, whoa.
That's like it reminds me of the meme with Timmy Turner from Fairly Odd Parents. He's like, this is where I would put my Batman hot toy if I had one.
Exactly. No, it's exactly what it was. Another guy had made mention to it. He's like, I guess it's coming, but it's not here yet. And he uses because he's based out of Australia. And he doesn't use Sideshow. He uses a website called Toys Wonderland. And apparently, I don't know the whole story, but the Batman like not showing up was like the final nail in the coffin for him, where he stopped promoting them. He's like, I'm done. You guys do this too many times. And I think there was something with like their returns, or that his name is on YouTube. It's called Justin's Collection. He did a whole video explaining, he's like, I will no longer be promoting Toys Wonderland. But his is a great channel too, because he'll actually go to the Hot Toys stores in Japan and like get tours and get early access to what's coming. Like he just dropped a video on that emo Peter Parker coming out. That one that looks with the Venom head.
Yeah.
Sick. Yeah.
But yeah, wanted to give you guys an update. It is frustrating for us, and we want you to join us in our pain. Your punishment must be more severe. Right. And that's kind of what I think about. I can't believe I'm quoting Bane again, but
I can. That's all we do.
It's just so relatable, right?
So good.
But anyways, any final comments before we end today's show, Frank?
Again, if you know what the Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning title means, please drop a comment. I'd like to know.
Hey, you know what? Dragnet, they could be an investigation for them. But hey, anyways, guys, thanks for listening as always. Catch us next time. Same streaming time, same streaming platform. Appreciate it.